Earl Washington, as seen here, a mildly retarded black man from rural Virginia, was convicted of rape and murder in 1982. He was then sentenced to death. He spent 18 years in jail and came within 9 days of being executed. 1 year away from his execution date, advanced DNA evidence proved that he had no link to the murder and he was fully exonerated. The fact that an innocent man can be wrongfully held on death row for 18 years and then come inches away from being put to death proves that there is a serious problem with our judiciary system. Today I'm going to talk to you about a few of the many reasons why the death penalty should no longer be an option in criminal sentencing. As many Americans do today, I previously put my faith in the judicial system and believed that what they were doing was just and fair. However, as I've researched more and learned about the system, I realized the government does not always act in honorable ways. There are often many cover-ups or speedy trials so that the government doesn't have to be shamed by any wrongful doings. My own interest in this topic started when I wrote a paper on the death penalty in 9th grade for my criminology class. From the facts I uncovered, they really surprised me and made me question much of what I believed about our current system. For this project, I researched more and found out not much has changed and the same problems still persist today. Today I'm going to talk to you about how the death penalty is not a deterrent to further crime, the high cost of the death penalty, the unfair treatment of those put on death row, and advanced DNA testing. First of all, crime rates do not go down in response to the death penalty. In fact, the U.S. murder rates are 6 times as high as those of Great Britain and 5 times of Australia, 2 countries that do not use the death penalty at all. Also, Texas, the state with the highest death penalty rate, has the highest murder rate in the nation. Texas and Oklahoma have historically executed the most number of death row inmates, yet both of their murder rates have steadily increased and both have higher national averages. Not only does the death penalty not prevent future crime, but it also costs more than life in prison. The Amnesty International Commission did a study this past July and revealed some startling facts on death penalty costs. A legislative audit in Kansas found that the estimated cost of a death penalty case was 70% more than a case that had no death penalty result. Death penalty case costs were counted through to execution, and the median cost was $1.26 million. Non-death penalty cases were counted through to the end of incarceration with a median cost of $740,000. In Tennessee, death trials cost an average of 48% more than the cost of trial which only seek life imprisonment. And in California, the current system costs $137 million per year. It would cost only $11.5 million per year if there was no death penalty. These are just some of the many examples of how the death penalty actually puts more of a burden on taxpayers than would life imprisonment. Perhaps the most important factor in determining whether a defendant will receive the death penalty is the quality of the representation they are provided. Almost all defendants in death penalty cases cannot afford their own attorney. Many death row inmates were convicted while being defended by the least skilled lawyers possible, who were often the worst paid and most inexperienced, and the right to an attorney is one of the vital hallmarks of our judicial system, so that's a serious problem. It's essential that the attorney be experienced in capital cases, be adequately compensated, and have access to the resources needed to fulfill their obligations to the job. An examination of 461 capital cases by the Dallas Morning News in 2000 found that nearly 1 in 4 condemned inmates is represented by a lawyer who has been reprimanded for professional misconduct at some point in their careers. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, as of 2002, the U.S. has exonerated 108 people, including 12 death row inmates. And this was done by the use of advanced DNA testing. Capital punishment leaves no room for mistakes, no allowances for doubt or indecision. Once the act is over, the government has erased someone from the world forever, regardless if innocence is later found. This is not to say there's even a majority of innocent people on death row, but if there's any chance that someone is innocent, the use of such a final punishment is irrational. The fact that there have been so many instances of wrongful judgment proves that it's absurd for anyone to think it's just to sentence someone to death. In closing, I hope you realize from the information I provided that the use of capital punishment is one of the biggest flaws in our current system. It's disgraceful to our country that so many innocent people have wasted years of their life incarcerated only to later be released on the account of someone's mistake. The death penalty does not prevent future crime and costs more than life in prison. Also, it's usually the most poorly represented individuals who are sentenced. And finally, our growing advances in DNA testing have proven that in many cases, people were wrongfully sentenced. Therefore, no chance should be taken with a punishment so final as death. And there's also a display here which shows which states have the death penalty and which do not. And as you can see, it's a majority that have the death penalty and only a number of northern states that do not have it at all. Does anyone have any questions? Alright, go ahead, Chris.
So, how much is the death penalty?
Well, it varies from state to state, but the biggest cost in the death penalty is the ongoing trial, because a trial in a death penalty case is a lot longer than a case where they're not seeking the death penalty. Any other questions?
I have a question. Are there more black people executed or more white people executed?
It's actually more, a lot of people would assume that it's more African Americans executed, and that's what a lot of people guess, but the statistics show there are more white people executed. Any other questions?
What state has the highest rate of executions in the United States?
Texas. Texas has the high rate of executions, followed by Oklahoma. No more questions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.